You know that moment when a customer looks you dead in the eye and says, "Just be honest with me. What's actually wrong with my car?" And you're standing there thinking, "Bro, if I tell you the truth, your entire budget, your trust in humanity, and probably your relationship with your mechanic all die at the same time." Yeah, that's the life of a so-called sports car mechanic. Except in my case, I wasn't just fixing cars, I was fixing stories. Sometimes I was diagnosing engines. Sometimes I was diagnosing how much truth I could safely tell without getting fired. Let's talk about mistakes, because honestly, that's where everything starts. I didn't become this perfect, experienced mechanic overnight. I became it through mistakes. Expensive ones. Loud ones. The kind of mistakes that make a Ferrari sound like a dying washing machine. My first big mistake? Acting like I knew more than I actually did. I still remember the first time I walked into a high-end garage. You know the type. Floor so clean you feel guilty stepping on it. Tools arranged like they're in a hospital. And every mechanic looks like they've been personally trained by a Formula One team. And there I was, pretending I belonged. A customer brought in a sports car, low, loud, angry-looking machine. He said it's making a weird noise at high speed. Now I had absolutely no clue what I was doing, but I nodded like a wise old professor and said, "Hmm, probably airflow imbalance in the turbo resonance system." I made that up. Completely. The senior mechanic next to me slowly turned his head like he just heard a crime being committed in real time. But here's the thing. I got away with it. The customer nodded like I had just spoken ancient engineering wisdom and said, "Yeah, that makes sense." That was the moment I learned something dangerous. People don't always want truth. They want confidence. And that's where my honest mechanic life slowly turned into, well, a creative storytelling job. But don't get me wrong, it didn't stay funny for long, because the second mistake hit me hard. A customer once brought in a car worth more than my entire life savings multiplied by several lifetimes. A proper supercar. And he said, "Don't mess this up." So naturally, I panicked internally but smiled externally. Always smile externally. I checked the engine, tapped a few things, nodded thoughtfully, and said, "It's just a sensor issue." Was it a sensor issue? I had no idea. It sounded safe, though. Sensor issue is like the mechanic version of saying it's complicated in a relationship. We replaced something. I don't even remember what anymore. The car worked, kind of. But then came the test drive. And that's when I learned another important rule of life. Never test drive something you diagnosed while guessing. Because halfway down the road, the engine light came on like it was celebrating my incompetence. I had two choices: confess or pretend it's normal calibration. I chose chaos. I told the customer, "Oh yeah, that's just the car adapting to the new system." He believed me. I don't know whether to feel proud or guilty about that to this day. But let me tell you something. This job, or lifestyle, or whatever you want to call it, teaches you psychology more than mechanics. You start reading people instead of engines. Some customers are panic types. They hear one noise and think the car is about to explode into space. Some are budget warriors. They already know what's wrong and just want you to agree with them. And then there are the dangerous ones, the YouTube experts. They walk in and say things like, "I watched a video, I think it's the crankshaft flux capacitor." And you're standing there thinking, there is no such thing. But also, I wish I had the confidence of this man. One of my funniest experiences happened with a guy who owned a bright red sports car. He came in saying, "My car feels slow." Now, feels slow is mechanic code for this could be anything from a dirty filter to the driver aging emotionally. So I did what any experienced, honest liar mechanic would do. I nodded, opened the hood, stared at it like I was communicating with aliens, and said, "It's probably running in safe mode due to adaptive pressure imbalance." He said, "Oh, okay." Then he asked, "Can you fix it today?" That's where the real art comes in. Because sometimes the truth is, yes, it can be fixed in 10 minutes. But the mechanic truth is, if I say 10 minutes, I will regret my entire existence financially. So I said, "We'll need to recalibrate the performance system and run diagnostics overnight." He said, "Perfect." I basically got paid for giving a car a nap. But here's where I want to be real with you for a second. Behind all the jokes and fake technical words, there's a real lesson here. Because in life, not just mechanics, people often hide uncertainty behind confidence. We guess, we pretend, we hope nobody notices. But the problem is, the longer you do that, the more dangerous your mistakes become. There was a moment, I still remember it clearly, when I messed up a small repair. Nothing dramatic, just a simple oversight. But I tried to cover it instead of admitting it. That small mistake turned into a bigger one. And that bigger one turned into a very expensive repair that I absolutely did not want to explain to anyone. That day I learned something I didn't want to learn. Honesty is cheaper in the long run, even if it's uncomfortable in the moment. Now, I'm not saying every mechanic story ends with honesty saving the day like some movie. Real life is messier. Sometimes you admit mistakes and still get yelled at. Sometimes you fix everything perfectly and still get blamed. That's just how people are. But I'll tell you what changed for me. I stopped pretending I was always right. Instead, I started saying things like, I'm not fully sure yet, but I'll figure it out properly. And weirdly enough, customers respected that more. Even the sports car guy who used to intimidate me, he started trusting me more when I stopped sounding like a fake NASA engineer and started sounding like a human being. Now let's wrap this up. If you take anything from this chaotic story of fake diagnoses, confident guessing, and sports cars that probably deserve therapy, let it be this. Mistakes don't make you fake. Covering them up does. Confidence is good, but honesty is what actually builds trust. And sometimes the smartest thing you can say is, I don't know yet, but I will find out. Because whether you're fixing cars, building a career, or just trying to figure life out, pretending is expensive, and eventually the engine light always comes back on. If you enjoyed this story and want more videos like this, where we break down self-improvement, real-life lessons, and slightly ridiculous situations from everyday life, then hit subscribe. Because next time, we're going even deeper into the mistakes people make when they try to look successful, before they actually are. And trust me, those mistakes are even funnier.